and incubators and accelerators, improving the type of mentoring networks that we can provide to you all, and ideally increasing sort of access to financing for entrepreneurs and basically across the board, anything that we can do to be helpful. And so what we are still trying to do is ask what is the best way for us to do that? And then my plug is on April 1st, basically next Tuesday, the Assistant to the President, Ben Rhodes, and my boss, Deputy Secretary Higginbottom, will be hosting an event at the State Department. And it's basically a private outreach event where we are trying to sort of explain how we are broadening the initiative beyond the fellowship and hoping to bring in some really great partners who have already expressed interest. So if there are folks in this wonderful audience who are interested in attending, please give me your card. I can pass it along to the Global Partnerships Office that's actually coordinating it for my office. But again, thank you for having me, and I would look forward to any feedback.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us here. Thank you for coming out. I'm Kevin Valentine Jr., and I'm
The mic? Yeah.
Is it on?
No.
Is it on? Is it on? Good morning.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Better.
There it is. Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for coming out, and thanks for having us here. We definitely appreciate you all coming out. I'm Kevin Valentine Jr. I'm involved with city politics and representation here in D.C. We're home to Georgetown University, George Washington University, Howard University, American University, and the University of the District of Columbia. All of those universities have a strong African presence in the students. We've also got a very strong presence for many African countries in the city, period. So my question is, what do we do on the city level? And this may be a question as much to Representative Bass as anyone else, but what do we do on the city level to engage the students here in DC and to create and foster an environment where they maintain a connection to their home, to their motherland, and where it's not just a, we come here and we stay here, we don't really have a good connection there. Is there any ideas?
Very good. I have one person that I respect so much here because in the past we had very interesting conversations on the Strait of Africa, and he's a great American that has lived his life in Africa, went to school there, studied there, worked in Europe, and worked here. And I can see him in the room here, and his name is Sally Booker. I would appreciate if Booker could perhaps try to answer such a question. I think you're in a position to answer such a very question, very simply, really. Could you please take the microphone to Sally Booker, please?
Thank you very much, Shaka. I knew there was a danger in greeting you this morning. Of course, there have always been a very large African presence in this country since the transatlantic slave trade. This is an African country as much as any other ancestry. And in recent years, of course, we have an enormous, what's called the neo-diaspora, the second diaspora, the immigration of millions of Africans and their families. And that community in particular is enriching so many communities around the country. And so there's great hope. There's a great need also, though, for the two diasporas to come together. And as my brother mentioned here, in Washington, D.C. itself, a geographical area that has a majority of African descent and yet no representation with a vote in the U.S. Congress, something we need to do in terms of democracy here in the United States is give a vote to those disenfranchised right here in D.C. who are primarily people of African descent. So there's much to be done at the city level in D.C., in New York, in Los Angeles, in Minnesota, in so many different places at the state and city level. There are growing communities of people of African descent. We need to work on integrating these two diasporas, and we need to work on raising their voices, their political voices and influence in the United States Congress. There used to be what was called a subcommittee on Africa in the U.S. House of Representatives. It no longer exists. It's the only geographical region that doesn't have its own committee just focused on the affairs of Africa. It was subsumed under health and global human rights, et cetera. And that itself, fortunately, that hasn't happened on the Senate side, but that itself is an indicator that if we don't raise our collective political voices and demand greater attention to Africa and U.S. relations with Africa, then we'll lose that. And there's so much potential with the changing demographics of this country. We need to take advantage and raise these voices. So what I'm hoping in this YALI initiative with all you young African leaders coming here, and I also, of course, second the point that there definitely needs to be more gender balance in the delegations, and you yourselves should embrace that and demand that of those who are organizing the program. But what I hope you will do while you're here is engage these two diasporas, as well as, you know, everything else that's on your schedule, and you'll have busy schedules. Make sure you make it a point to go visit the Nigerian community, the Ghanaian community, the Ethiopian community, the Pan-African organizations, but also the African-American organizations, and also take a visit to the prisons, because a disproportionate amount of people of African descent are incarcerated in this country. It is a crime against justice. It is something you should make yourselves aware of. And you should also reflect on how does that relate to the most disadvantaged portions of your own populations back at home? What are the similarities in terms of discrimination, in terms of denying people access to justice? So we have high hopes for you. But we hope you will definitely engage our two diasporas while you're here in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sally Booker. I hope that one of my bosses is taking note here. She's called Sonia Lawrence. This would seem to be a perfect format for the next Straight Talk Africa. Let me go to the Ambassador. Well, I would like first, of course, to acknowledge the presence of Ambassador Cheikh Niang. He is the ambassador for the Republic of Senegal, a country, of course, on the West Coast, which I think arguably one of the beacons of hope for African democracy, really, especially in view of the last election that brought Macky Sall to State House, Dakar. Let me go to the ambassador from Cote d'Ivoire. I gather that he would like to say something. Ambassador Diabate, could you please say something?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chaka. But first of all, I am Ambassador Cote d'Ivoire, Ambassador Diabate, not Ambassador of Ivory Coast, as Chaka mentioned. And first of all, I want to thank Honorable Karen Bass for her presence and also for convening us to this important meeting. We are very pleased to be here because of the topic, YALI, because we know that as ambassador of African countries, we know the importance of our youth in our developmental policy on the continent. We used to say that Africa is the new frontier. It is the new frontier for sure, because we know all what we have as a continent. We have our population, what is nearly 1 billion, and out of that million, our youth is roughly the most important part, not in quantity, but also in quality. It is difficult to speak after our colleague of Botswana, mostly if you have to speak in a language that is not yours. I mean, I'm a French-speaking, let's say, ambassador, Although French is my second language, because before French I have my own language, so I learn French also. So what I want to mention is that the issue is very important for us. When I say for us, I can take the case of Côte d'Ivoire, what I know best. When we come to independence, our first president, President Houphouët-Boigny, who brought independence to Côte d'Ivoire, he was mentioning every time that Côte d'Ivoire was the Benjamin of the French colonies. It means that we were the smallest, mostly in matter of education, because the education rate at the time was only 8%. So the teachers come from Benin and other countries to teach us. So he make of the essence of his policy education. For more than 3 decades, more than 30 years, education was consuming 1/3 of the national budget, because he want to make of education the key, the center of his policy. He was right, because few years later, they started qualifying Côte d'Ivoire as a miracle. This miracle comes from the youth that he has educated. So Africa has a duty to educate his young people. And as, let's say, the current chair of the African Ambassadors Group, we are working in the preparation of the US African Summit. And among the topic that we have as a key topic, there is education. Whenever we speak, we cannot avoid speaking about education. Even yesterday we have, let's say, an African Ambassadors Group meeting. Education is our key issue. So we want to welcome you here because you are our hope. Mr. Chaka, who has received me 5 times at Voice of America when we were fighting to make the democracy prevail in my country. 5 times, 3 times in English, 2 times in French, to go to Voice, who won the election back home. So I want to use your mic in front of everybody to thank Voice of America, because Voice of America is also Voice of Africa. That's what I want to mention. Before concluding, he also mentioned that 50 years ago, there was one student who came here at age of 20 to learn to study at Pennsylvania University. He went up to PhD in economics. He worked at the IMF, even to the position of Deputy Director General. This gentleman of 50 years before is the today President of Côte d'Ivoire, President Alassane Ouattara. So you, when she said that you may be one of the presidents of Africa, she's right. Because today, we don't know if it will be right, but if we refer to the past, it means that she may be right. You may be something like president in our continent. So you are our hope. We want you to be, and we want that hope to become reality. So we salute the President Obama's yearly program. We want it to be expanded, as we are asking Power Africa also to be expanded to other African countries. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to come to greet our sons and daughters, even though we notice that there are less daughters than sons. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. But you have to come again to Straight Talk Africa, because since accomplishing your goal of winning the election and taking over power, you haven't come back again. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, we seem to be, time happens not to be really our best ally, but we'll take perhaps 2 more questions. Yes, please.
Yes, good morning, everyone. And I want to thank Madame Karen Bass for having us here. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm also from Uganda, and I must say that I've heard the voice of Shaka since I was a child in Uganda. So
Oh my God. What does that make me?
happy to be here. My name is Patrick Kabanda, and I'm currently a short-term consultant with the Office of Senior Vice President and Chief Economist at the World Bank. And I'm looking into the area of culture and development, specifically focusing on the role of performing arts in bringing about development. My question is going to be based on the ideas of engaging also our elderly people. I think that we want to make sure that as much as Africa learns from America, America can also learn from Africa. Because mostly the information is always one way, and I think it should be a two-way street. On the idea of engaging our elderly people, Africa, one of our biggest assets is knowledge from older people. And I think as we focus on new technologies and things going on so fast, we forget that we have to pick up this knowledge from our African elders to inform us as we move forward, especially working with young people. So how can we create that link of using knowledge or engaging our elderly people and transferring it to our young people to bring about an African image which is related to the old and the new? Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Patrick. One person that I think can attempt to answer that question really is someone also who has been pretty much a great contributor on Straight Talk Africa, is a man that has also interacted a lot with Africa and, of course, America, and he's called Melvin Fwitt. Why don't you give a microphone to Melvin? Melvin, I'd like to hear what you have to say about that, especially this cross kind like cultural relationship between the Americas and Africa and stuff like that, because you've been really in the front line of that.
Well, Shaka, first of all, I want to pay respect to you. You're a legend in Washington. You're a legend in the Africa world. I've had the opportunity to engage a number of the young African leaders while they're in town, and honestly, today is an inspiring day. What I really want to say, though, yeah, Africa is learning a lot from America, but America is learning a lot from Africa. And so, I mean, I think today is just a happy day. It's a day when we really are seeing the future presidents of Africa sitting here. I should say half of the future of African presidents, the women are missing, and we know they're going to be here. I'm with you. But this is an inspiring day to see the young people to make this connection with us. And Shaka, you're right. The people are here. I've seen very important presidents come to Washington who don't get this kind of audience. And the people are here because they have hope and you know, hope for the future. So I just want to say this is a good day. Thank you for moderating the session. Thank you, Congresswoman Bass, for convening the session. And we look forward to working with these young people in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. But before you hand over the microphone, there is one question that I would like you to, to answer really. In whatever you've been doing, is there something in particular that you're doing to help girls in Africa? Or is there a way you can do that? This is, in fact, a question from Facebook. Iwan Habar.
I would just say that as far as I'm concerned, we're linking with all the young people. We work closely with the Obama administration, President Obama, in launching the Young African Leaders Initiative. And when we see it, we clearly see half of the people in Africa are women and girls. I've always felt that. I've done a lot of work on the continent of Africa, and I always found out that when you give the women the money, the project gets done. When you give them... When you give the men the money, they run off to Dakar or they run off to Accra, and all of a sudden the animals die because nobody fed them. I'm not making anything. So we actually see it. We empower them. We don't speak for women. We speak up for women. We don't speak for women. Women can speak for themselves. But we speak up for women, and we continue throughout my program, all my programs, you will see gender balance throughout. We would never have a panel with all men. And even when I go to Africa and I'm on panels where you got all men speaking, I raise it, I raise it. And the men look at you kind of like, wow, But I just say that in general, our program is gender balanced. You know, we don't even think about should a woman be here. It's automatic. You know, we look at the panel and say, okay, half women, half men, and we start from there. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, everybody who is involved in this great occasion. I was particularly struck by the speech by Honorable Ambassador from
Botswana.
Botswana. If you look at this room, you are young African, if you look at this room, we have real gender balance. We have more women than men. And that is what should be in Africa. Now, it was Dr. Agri who said, when you educate a woman, you educate a nation. And when you educate a man, you educate an individual.
An individual.
Now, you know, in Africa, women are treated differently from men. In some countries, societies, they are relegated to a second class. Now, as young African leaders becoming presidents and notables, what programs will you have to make sure women are treated on equal basis as men in all areas of life, in marriage, in work, in everything? I want to hear from you today, for everybody to hear what programs or institutions you will institute when you become leaders to make sure our women are at the forefront of everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I beg your pardon?
Oh, I'm John. Excuse me. I'm John Nyako. I represent an aspect of the brain drain, which is not a gain, but actually in America.
We're in the same boat. Yes, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marie Meka. I'm from Cameroon. I'm a youth organizer in Washington, D.C. My question is to know, what do you have on hand for the diaspora to be involved in Yali, since the diaspora is the community who understand very well the culture of those African young leaders? Thank you.
Very interesting. Who would be the best person to answer that question, really? Who would be the best person to answer such a question? Can you share your experiences with and reflect on her question and see how the diaspora fits in? Frank.
Thank you. I'll maybe start with the question of Mr. John, where he was asking about what can be done to ensure that women are brought at the forefront. I'll talk about this maybe using the experience in Rwanda. I think we need to first start with the legal framework, because like in Rwanda, discrimination has been removed in the constitution and all the laws of the country. So all children, girls and boys are equal. And there is also a constitutional provision that actually allows women to take up leadership positions. So like currently we have 63% of our members of parliament are women. And so I think putting in place this legal framework is very important as a first step to actually empower women. The second point, I think, is having the law in place is not enough, but you need also to empower women economically, because there can be a legal provision says that, you know, they are equal, but if the opportunities are not the same, then they will remain also not in a better position. You need also to come up income generating activities for ladies, for them to be capable of, you know, involving in those economic activities, because we know that when you have economy is power, you know, money is power. So we need also look at both the legal framework, but also at the economic level to empowering women. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank.
Good morning. My name is Chokwe Fajengbesi, and I'm the host of Impact Africa. I just wanted to make two comments. And the first one is about the brain gain, brain drain. I don't think in 2014 people have to choose. You can get to Nigeria in 11 hours from Atlanta. And I think we can contribute to any society that we choose to, both our host community and the continent. I also want to talk about what people have been saying about women representation and diaspora engagement. I was very lucky to join a group yesterday, and I want to encourage the Congresswoman and the State Department lady who spoke to engage, and that's the Diaspora African Women Network. I actually saw the founder there. Somehow, please stand up. This is a way to engage the diaspora and to engage women. And, since this is a concern of everybody, I think that, engage, Dawn, and let us, instead of engaging the corrupt African governments and get no results. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Tambra Stevenson. I hold two hats, founder of Native Soul Kitchen, which empowers families to create healthy meals, particularly around African foods here in America, but also the National Public Policy Chair for the National Organization for Blacks in Dietetics and Nutrition. I come to you because I've connected to my own heritage, Fulani tribe of northern Nigeria, and have made a personal investment in looking at a healthy Africa is a wealthy Africa. And my concern is the nutrition transition. As we look at malnutrition having impacted Africa, we now see the $22 Johnny Rocket burgers of Nigeria being also a predicament of obesity and chronic diseases. And my concern is the healthcare infrastructure in Africa. Can it really uphold these transitions as we build the economic base in Africa? Because when we look at investing in the health and the nutrition of the continent, it needs to not be at the cost of the health and the future of Africa as well. So I factor in, when we look at making a triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit, that you as young leaders look at that when you look to see investment of what is the full investment that we're truly making it, where it's not at the cost of our future. So I hope the development of more nutritionists is not only that it helps to improve one's body, but also their family and their community, and it creates career opportunities that will help Africa transition as it builds its future legacy. So for anyone who wishes to have comment on that, I really would love to hear, because I'm going into our public policy conference here in Washington, D.C. with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, where they finally elected their first person of African descent, which is superior in terms of how we can leverage her position to reconnect to Africa and make investments in nutrition there as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, good morning. My name is Joyce Holliday. I'm the Executive Director of the International Association of African NGOs. We're currently working on encouraging African leaders to engage citizens, NGOs and CSOs alike, in economic development and public policy to foster sustainable development. We're currently having meetings at the World Bank at the spring meeting in April. We've invited some leaders to engage in this discussion. You guys are leaders of tomorrow. I'm imploring you, as you go back, to find creative ways and respectful ways to encourage your leaders to engage citizens in economic development and public policy for sustainable development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Could you please take the microphone to my friend Bernadette Paola for the Africa Society. This is someone that has in the past stimulated a debate on Straight Talk Africa and has had incredible engagement with the African continent.
Thank you,
You're most
Shaka.
welcome.
I spent many years in this room with Solly Booker when there was a subcommittee on Africa, and now I'm the president of the Africa Society. But here's why I'm here today, to see your faces and to have hope, which is in stark contravention to the negative portrayal of Africans in the media. And our organization has done 4 films in the past with heads of state that show images that have gone to 700 million people worldwide, of people on cell phones going to school, going to church, of industry, of African families that are whole. And we've worked with over 10,000 young people in the United States to educate them about you, to try to link them with you. So what I would like for you to do is meet as many Americans as possible, to connect with your peers so that they know who you are, and you are the future, and I'm just glad to see you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, time happens not to be our best ally, and as such, I have to give an opportunity to the panelists to make some conclusive remarks. Manasseh, what about you? What do you take from here? Very briefly, please.
Okay. It's a wonderful opportunity. When I was leaving my country, I didn't even imagine that I would have this opportunity to come and speak in the Congress of the United States of America. And what I'm glad to be here, and thank you for everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My sister, what about my sister Adowa? What about you?
I wish to thank everyone for coming. And I see the issue of women has really been an issue of concern to almost everyone present here. And I believe that before we could do anything as women, first and foremost, I think someone asked something about how women are being treated in Africa and how African women should be led to the forefront. I think basically it begins with us individuals. Not until we are willing to take that challenge and willing to try something new. And I noticed like in Africa, for instance, most women are always having this kind of discrimination and this kind of low self-esteem, let me put it that way. And so not until we see ourselves as leaders in our own special way, I don't think we can go anywhere forward as women. And if you don't believe in yourself, there is no way anybody else could believe in you. So I think we as women have to first and foremost believe in ourselves. And secondly, again, I think we should also be willing to be able to battle these issues of inferiority complex, because sometimes there are certain positions when as women you try to strive for it, you see the men asking, how could a woman go for such a position? I mean, you have to kill all those comments in your ears and then be willing to go further to strive for whatever at all you want to do. You don't need anybody to motivate you. I always tell myself, the greatest motivator you could have is yourself. If you're waiting for anybody to motivate you to go a step higher, then you are a dreamer. You have to motivate yourself. Don't wait for anybody to motivate you. And again, I believe in our own special way to be leaders. You don't have to lead a very large number of people to be a leader. Once you are able to influence somebody's decision, you're already a leader. And you must always strive to make it a point that tell yourself that probably in this week, how many people do I hope to influence? How many people do I hope to influence in a month? You could start even from your homes, because the best leaders you could be is even starting from your home. How do they see you in your homes? How do they see you in your communities, in your churches, in your schools, in your organizations? How do they see you? If they see you as a role model, then of course you know that you have everything that it takes to be a leader. And so I believe that first and foremost, we should try to motivate ourselves. What I do, for instance, in my church is to motivate the youth that you can do something, you can do anything you want to do once you set your mind forward to do it, as long as it's the right thing, as far as the Constitution pertains to it. So I think so far so good. I think I'll thank each and every one of us here, for all of us coming here and thinking alike as young African leaders. And thank you all for believing in us as leaders. God bless you all.
Thank you so much. My brother Frank, what about you? What do you take from here?
Thank you. I think what I'm taking from here is that we've been challenged as young leaders. I'm really very humbled by the hope that has been echoed by different distinguished guests here regarding the youth of Africa. I think I and my colleagues, we need to take it serious, to make it our homework, to actively participate in our national governance, and to see how our houses can be cleaned and fixed. You know, I know back in our countries, we still have a lot of governance issues related to corruption, transparency, and also youth themselves are facing a lot of issues. Unemployment, I've had the issue of education has been underlined a lot, and that's very important. So by concluding my remarks, I would just like to request again that you assist the young leaders in Africa, the youth in Africa, to also realize their potential. And this requires to invest in education. This requires to set up leadership training centers, as I mentioned earlier. And this requires actually to encourage also African governments to open up, to provide platforms to young leaders also to come up, because sometimes we do not participate because we are discouraged. Whenever you try to penetrate, you find there is a roadblock always. So you please, in your discussions, we are also challenged to go back and mobilize our dear colleagues that we need also to take up these roles, but also you need to help us in the advocacy, in the meetings that you have with our heads of state, encourage them to open up. And there we also take up our responsibilities. Thank you.
Well, thank you very, very much, panelists, for your presentations, and for at least giving us a sense that there is hope after all as far as the African continent is concerned, especially if we look at your generation. We believe that is your moment. It is up to you to assert your constitutional rights. After all, most African countries, if not all, maybe with the exception of 2 kingdoms on the continent, that is probably Swaziland and Morocco, most of the countries have constitutions which